Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2019 film Running with the Devil. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I would like to give a special shout out to Mark for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. The link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Running with the Devil, whenever I hear that title, I just think of the Van Halen song, and this film is nowhere near as awesome or as memorable as that song is. I was surprised that song wasn't even featured in the movie somewhere, considering that a lot of people, when they hear that or they see that term, they're like, Van Halen? No. You don't get Van Halen. You don't get classic Van Halen and David Lee Roth with this movie. You just get another generic, forgettable crime drama about drug runners. That's what you get with Running with the Devil. It's directed by a guy named Jason Cabell. He co-directed a film previously that he also wrote because he is the writer for this movie as well. And I'm not going to sit here and say that his direction is particularly bad or awful or crappy, but it's not anything that stands out. It's your typical average, run of the mill, so so kind of directing that you've seen a million other directors do for a million other direct to video, direct to streaming kind of movies. It's competent, but it's nothing impressive. At times, I swear it seems like some shots were shot with a drone camera, like a GoPro or something. That the guy put on a drone because it doesn't really look like a typical sort of usual shot. And yeah, I mean it's the kind of direction that's technically sound but not terrific. There's not a lot of angles and perspectives and POVs or wide zooms or pans or camera angles. There's a few instances of that, but for the most part, it's very rigid. It's very typical when it comes to the direction for a low budget crime drama. Uh, I would say the most ambitious the direction seemed to ever get is maybe a couple tracking shots. There was one in a club that opened up the movie that was pretty good. But other than that, not really anything that impressive visually or from a directorial standpoint. The script by Jason Cabell. This screenplay, man, this is so paint by numbers that it hurts. Whatever twists, whatever turns that do occur in the plot, they happen so late that it really just feels like it's a missed opportunity more than anything else. Other instances are pretty predictable, like for instance with Nicolas Cage's character, the cook, somehow surviving his supposed fatal fall and then getting revenge over the guy who spiked his drugs and tried to kill him. Um and the identity of the guy in the beginning that you see getting essentially tortured in a bathroom and getting ready to be killed, it's pretty clear who that person is. Uh, Honestly, like maybe a little bit over halfway through the movie. The film has this weird structure in terms of how it introduces the characters. First off, you never know their names. They just are considered the cook, the man, agent in charge, the boss, the snitch, the farmer, the executioner, number one. Where's number two? Um, the woman, the child. But apparently there is a guy named Trey. So everyone doesn't have a name except for Trey. And honestly, I don't even remember who Trey was in this movie. Because there's also another guy named Young Man. So everyone else is just no named, but except for Trey. I guess Trey was special, apparently. Or the writer just couldn't come up with a generic name for him. Now, because of this, it's very difficult to really have any sort of connection to any of these characters because you don't even know their names and you don't even honestly know what a lot of their motivations are, except for the man. He wants to spike these drugs that he's been supplied with fentanyl and some other mix of some other drugs so he can sell this spiked product so he can make more money. The cook is a guy who's in a way kind of a middleman who works with this cartel and supplies the drugs to the streets. And he's tasked by the cartel leader guy to figure out who is spiking the drugs. The agent in charge is exactly who you think it is. It's the agent in charge who's trying to stop these drug dealers. The boss is the bad guy. He's the boss. He's the one that is really the man in charge. It's not the man and it's not the cook. The snitch is a snitch. The farmer is some guy who's going around on foot in South America with drugs in his bag to deliver to other people who are going to take the drugs and get it ready to be sent to the United States. The woman, I believe, is just his wife. There's some guy named the Executioner who's just this heavy who works for the cook. There's really not a whole lot to say about any of these characters because there's not really much of any character development or depth. Like I said, you don't really know their names. In terms of a conflict, it's almost non-existent. There's something about, the cook doesn't want to get caught and have his drug dealing exposed to his family. Or actually, no, that's not the case. His family knows that he deals drugs, but they don't really seem to care other than him just coming back alive. So a lot of it's just about, okay, is he going to return from South America in one piece? And is he going to figure out who's spiking the drugs? Which that really isn't a mystery because you already know who's doing it. So you're just waiting for the cook to catch up on things. Are the agent the drug agents, the DEA agents, are they gonna catch the bad guys? That's not really a compelling enough conflict either. Will the farmer get his drugs delivered to the next guy? It's the kind of stuff where you're like, who gives a shit? Who cares about the drugs? Who cares about whether the drugs get to so and so? I don't give a fuck. I don't care. And the one time where you have a potentially compelling aspect of the plot is just mentioned very briefly near the end, and nothing is ever really done with it. And it deals with the agent in charge, and she figures out who's behind all of this, who's behind supplying the drugs. And before I go any further, I want to mention that she's one of the few characters that you actually have somewhat of a compelling arc for or a motive that you can get behind because her I think it was her sister or someone that she is very close to her and her family died of a drug overdose because of these tainted drugs. And so she has a personal connection to what's happening in her neighborhood and to the case itself. So when she uncovers who's behind it and she's not really able to do anything about it because she doesn't have the evidence, but she knows who's doing it, she decides to take the law into her own hands by the end of the movie and actually takes out Nicolas Cage's character, meets him at his restaurant and shoots him dead. And then it sets up I guess there's a vigilante rampage that this character is going to go on, but you only get part of it, and then the movie is over before it goes in and any further with that plot element. And I'm like, why wasn't that the focus of the movie the entire time? Like, have Nicolas Cage be the DA agent. Have Nicolas Cage be the DA agent who whose family, or let's just say his wife or sister or his mom or somebody died of a drug overdose that he's very close to. And because of that, he really wants to nail who's responsible for it. You could still have Laurence Fishburne be in there. He could be the guy who's in charge instead of being this toady who spends a good chunk of the movie acting like he's high and apparently coming in his pants at a peep show. So instead of that, like, have Nicolas Cage be the DA agent, and then have the film really deal with him being tempted to break the law in order to get revenge, and gradually throughout the story he starts to crack. So you'll think that he's one step ahead of the bad guy, of the drug dealer. You think that he's figuring things out, or he's got evidence, or he's going to nail him, but then something happens where it's not in the right jurisdiction, or the evidence was illegally required from someone under his employ, or somebody gets paid off, and so it just leads to him gradually just losing faith in the system. And that's when he decides to take the law into his own hands and goes after these drug dealers and takes them out uh uh Death Wish style. Paul Kersey style. Like, take him out like Charles Bronson in Death Wish 2. That kind of thing. Like Nicolas Cage's death sentence, or Nicolas Cage's Death Wish. Like, I would see that movie. That sounds a lot better than whatever the hell this wound up being, where it felt like it was 5 different movies that were just crammed together into one film with not a single relatively compelling plot line for any of these small short films, except for maybe the one involving the agent in charge, but it doesn't have a satisfying payoff. It just leaves you with blue balls by the end because you're like, wait, I want to see where this goes. And like, yeah, no, it's the movie's over now. Like, what the hell? Like, really? You're gonna end with a vigilante justice thing, and then you're not gonna give me more? Like, come on, man. And yeah, it's just a bad script. It really is, because either it takes itself too seriously, which makes it very dull and boring, or it just stretches things out to the point of things just completely tearing apart at the seams because there's not enough there to support all of this extra time devoted to these various different subplots and so on. I think it's trying to be something like Sicario, but it's not even remotely close to the level of that movie. But yeah, I guess you could kind of look at it as Tubi Sicario. But if you're in the mood to watch something like Sicario, just watch Sicario. Don't watch this. It stars Nicolas Cage, Laurence Fishburne, Leslie Bibb, Barry Pepper, Adam Goldberg, Clifton Collins Jr., Cole Hauser. Like, you have some talented actors and performers in this. Like Nicolas Cage, yeah, he plays a guy who works for a drug dealer or for a cartel, but you don't get any like major Nicolas Cage freakout moments that might, elevate a cheap, low budget, direct to streaming kind of movie like this. You get like one brief moment near the end when he reveals himself to Laurence Fishburne's character before he kills him. Other than that, It's just Nick Cage sleepwalking and just collecting a paycheck. Laurence Fishburne, this is not one of his more memorable roles, except for in the worst kind of way. I still am not able to scrub away the image of Laurence Fishburne coming in his pants at a peep show. I wish I never saw that. I'm pretty sure Laurence Fishburne himself probably wishes nobody saw that, but he definitely appreciated the paycheck that he got for playing the man who comes. um, Leslie Bibb, she was pretty decent in the few scenes that she was in. I think she was strong enough. She could have been a focus if you wanted to go that route where Nicolas Cage could be the main guy, the boss, and she's the D agent who's becomes gradually disillusioned with the system. But if you're gonna do that kind of plot, I just think you should just have Nick Cage be that character. He's definitely a more compelling leading uh, uh, personality when it comes to a performer versus someone like Leslie Bibb. No offense to Leslie Bibb, she's fine, but I don't think she could carry the movie, or at least not as well as Nicolas Cage. Barry Pepper does a good job playing a guy you want to see someone wring his neck. Adam Goldberg, the same. Clifton Collins Jr., he's fine as the farmer, as the guy who's going from place to place, walking with his backpack full of drugs through South America. Uh, Cole Hauser, he's a force in this. Definitely plays a convincing heavy. Um, but I mean, other than Nick Cage and Laurence Fishburne, like, and maybe Leslie Bibb, like, it's not like there's any like really great performances in this, and even those performances weren't necessarily what I would call great either. You have talented actors and performers, but I think because of how weak the script is, they're not really given as much to work with, so they just wind up running with a paycheck by the end of the production. The cinematography by Corey Garriak, it's so. It's there. So is the editing by Jordan Goldman. Although I would say the editing at times is a bit too. I don't know if animated is the right. Well, actually, I think it does fit. It's a little bit too animated at times. It's a bit too amped up and over the top for this kind of movie. Specifically, there's way too many freeze frames and slow mo edits in this, especially anytime it like just cuts to a character and is trying to establish the character and who they are. And so what happens is the shot will just freeze frame, and then you'll see like a subtitle pop up that'll say the cook, the man, and then the video will start up again. That was so obnoxious, and it killed any flow that this movie might have personally had. And the film's like 100 minutes, but it drags because you're not that invested in the plot. You're not that invested in the characters, except for maybe things that are revealed in the last 10 to 15 minutes. And before that, you're just like, okay, what can I actually get out of this? Oh, there's a nightclub scene at the beginning with a really good song. Like, I want to look up that song again just to see what it is, what the name of that song is, because I love that song. Like, I was surprised to hear that song again. I was like, oh, cool. The song in the film's opening is Battle Flag, the remix by Low Fidelity All Stars featuring Pigeonhead from the late 90s. And I think that's a genuine gem of a track. And it was fun to hear that again. I just wish it was in a much more engaging and entertaining overall film. Do yourself a favor and just listen to Van Halen's "Running with the Devil" and then go put on a Battle Flag instead of watching "Running with the Devil." It's a much better way to spend your time, and it's a hell of a lot more satisfying. It's a kind of movie that it's not bad enough for me to rant on. Like it's not good, but it's competent enough. There's some decent performances at times. There's some okay ideas, but they're never really completely fully realized. And so what you have is just a typical below average affair that is just instantly forgettable. And the kind of thing that'll just rot on Tubi or a random streaming service till the end of time. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Running with the Devil, and thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.